A Tiny Revolution features adults having adult conversations, which means that adult language is probably going to be present. Just so you know. Hey there, you're listening to A Tiny Revolution, a podcast about ordinary people living revolutionary lives. My name is Kevin Garcia. Welcome to episode 61. More like episode 60 fun, and as per usual, I'm having a blast talking to the people who come on the show. Like, why they come on here, sometimes I wonder, because I feel like I'm the most ridiculous human ever. But, you know, blessed by the grace of God, I suppose. Today I'm talking with my friend Garrett Schlichte. He is a freelance writer, a queer Christian living up in DC. And, you know, he doesn't work in a whole lot of like queer Christian circles explicitly, but he writes for dope things like a queer publication. He's also written for The Advocate, The Washington Post. He's been on HuffPost. I mean, also, who hasn't been on HuffPost? I haven't been on HuffPost. How do we do this? Someone let me know. I would like to be published in other places. Actually, Garrett, if you're listening to this, can you tell me who I can pitch to? Because I've got some really good ideas for articles that could be written. Just a thought. Anyways, before I get into all this other crap, announcements as per usual. I am going to be at Wild Goose Festival, middle of July. I hope to see you there. You can get your tickets at wildgoosefestival.org, and when you do, use the code GooseCast18 and you'll get like 25% off of your tickets, which is pretty freaking dope. I'm going to be doing a workshop with Dr. Robin Henderson Espinosa and Matthias Roberts. I'm doing a panel with Emily Joy and Morgan Guyton. I am doing my own talk. That's one thing I'm doing. And then I'm also recording a live episode of Failed Missionary with Corey Pig and Jamie, the Very Worst Missionary. Other things to note, I am actually going to be featured on the Failed Missionary podcast beginning this month. My friend Corey has been working diligently on editing it. We've recorded some really good conversations, and a big thank you to everyone who submitted their stories to be a part of this series on LGBTQ identity in the mission world. I'm thrilled. I'm excited. It's going to be amazing, and I can't wait to share that project with you. Go ahead over to your podcast app, open it up, download Failed Missionary, subscribe, leave it a rating, and while you're there, you can also leave me a rating, so that way we can get in front of more people. So rate it 5 stars, let people know, and then, yeah, you'll be much happier when you did that. Listen, I promise you, you're going to feel so good when you do this. Okay, so today's conversation is with my friend Garrett Schlichte, and a little bit about him. Garrett was born and raised in Hollywood, Florida, before running as far away as possible and still get in-state tuition for college. At Florida State University, he got his bachelor's in editing, writing, and media with a minor in business, because obviously he had no concept of what a minor was actually for. And then he decided to test the limits of his seasonal affective disorder and moved all the way up to Connecticut, where he received his master's degree in higher education and student affairs. Shortly after his second winter up north, he came to his senses, moved down to DC, where he works full-time in higher education. And on top of that, he's also a freelance writer, like I said before, and writes every opportunity he gets. His work has appeared in The Advocate, Washington Post, Teen Vogue, and various other corners of the internet. So in today's talk, me and Garrett and I actually talk a lot about some really interesting and lovely things, including recognizing white privilege as a gay white man, how we both came to realize like what intersectionality was, how many of us, you know, how many cis white gay dudes just don't get or pay attention to intersectionality or the platform that they have or the privilege that they have. We also talk about Drag Race. We talk about waking the fuck up, and also we talk about, you know, silly and frivolous things like always, little lulsies here and there. So I think you're going to enjoy it. And also, if you're a white gay dude out there, this one is a must listen for you. Don't skip it. Don't go away. You need this, honey. But yeah, so Garrett has been all over the internet in some pretty prestigious publications, and now today he's making a crowning jewel achievement by talking with a C-list queer Christian celebrity on his podcast. Oh my gosh. You're welcome for coming on the show, Garrett. I'm such a blessing to your career. Okay, here's my conversation with Garrett Schlichte. As if you didn't already know, if you want something off the record, like we're in the middle of a conversation, you want to say, I don't want that on the the podcast, you can tell me. I'll edit it out later.
Okay, perfect.
So, safety, all the things. This is a safe space. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hi, Garrett. How are you? How's life?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Kevin?
I'm so good. It has been a minute since we've caught up, chatted,
It's been
talked.
like a year and a half, if not more.
But we...
Like, in real life. Like, we've talked digitally.
Yeah. Actually, here's the truth. I don't actually know if you and I have actually hung out in real life before.
I don't think we've ever met. We are like a perfect millennial online-only relationship.
Yeah. Let's keep it that way. Let's never meet.
Let's never meet. Like, let's make that the plan.
Yeah. Although I remember, like, early on in our digital friendship, my ex-boyfriend ended up in your Snapchat stories, and I was like... It was so
like,
funny.
I was friends with all of your ex-boyfriend's friends, which is how we became friends, kind of.
That is true. So the title of this episode is like, my ex-boyfriend's friends is now my friend.
Because you also know my ex-boyfriend and my ex-boyfriend's ex-boyfriend.
Oh my god. Ugh. The drama conflama.
The drama and conflama of all of it.
But we've survived and thrived.
Here we are.
Yeah. So something I wanted to like pick your brain about, particularly like around being a queer human, a queer Christian human who also writes like culture pieces for everybody from like freaking Washington Post. Did you write a piece? Didn't one of your pieces end up in Time?
It did not. It's just the Washington Post, but the New York Times one day, so let's speak that into existence.
Yes, we name it and claim it, Lord Jesus, in our time.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
What has it been like going from just kind of like HuffPo pieces to like writing like really important stuff? I remember like, I think one of like the ones that really blew up recently was, not recently, I guess it was maybe 6 months ago, but it was your piece on Drag Race racism and like how we talk about race and RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah.
So like first, like what for people who didn't read it because they're awful, what was the premise of the piece?
So the premise of the piece is that as a fandom, the people who watch Drag Race tend to lack a basic understanding of some of the history behind drag and how the way that we like view and dictate the behavior of queens is in a lot of ways rooted in systemic racism. And that we offer a lot of allowances to white queens that we don't offer to queens of color, and specifically Black queens, in the way that like we dictate their narrative and kind of a lot of like the tone policing conversation that's happened like this season with the Vixen.
So much.
Yeah, and just like a lot of those pieces. And so it was more so like speaking back to the Drag Race fandom about what we are and aren't willing to make allowances for. A lot of it was like started by Milk in the All-Star season. Like that's like what
oh my god
predicated this
so
piece.
Annoyed. And like it was one of those Tyra Banks we were all rooting for you moments.
Right. Like I love Milk. I obviously don't know them personally, but they do like such incredible work with so many great organizations. They do a lot of stuff with like Voices For, which is supporting like queers in Chechnya, and just like a lot of like really powerful work. But I think it was like also a great example of the fact that like even the best of intentioned people are not free of like internalized racism, and like we don't often have a choice in that. And that like you can still be like a really good, well-intentioned person and have like some racist behaviors that like you should still be examining, even if you think you're like a good person otherwise, because it's just like always good to check in with yourself.
Yeah. So as someone, do you identify as a white person?
I do identify as a white person.
As I don't know, like at what point in your journey, like you actually started to have an awareness of like a racial justice lens, or just a critical race analysis of, you know, just your life. When did that come about for you?
Well, I just wrote about that for a yet to be published piece that may be coming out soon.
Yeah, yeah.
But honestly, in college, I always have said that, like, I feel like I went into college as a kind of blank slate because I was closeted all throughout high school, and I went to high school, like, kindergarten through senior year of high school, honestly, with like 60 of the same people. I went to a small private Catholic school, and then to like a smaller private Catholic high school. Um, Little to no non-white folks there. Um, Two out gay people who were like horribly made fun of
At your
uh,
Catholic high school?
at my Catholic high school. And so I was like, I'm not going to be one of them. Like, I want to like survive this. And so I
Yeah.
was not out. I was just as gay as I appear to be now.
Like grass
So
is
like
green, sky is blue.
Garrett's gay. Like he's got it.
Wait, you're gay?
Don't tell anyone
Yeah,
that.
that's off the record.
Off the record, please.
Thank you.
No, but so in an effort to keep myself closeted, I was also like very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways, I was like, let's like give Sarah Palin a chance. You know what I mean? Like it was like the height of like we're like making like Barack Obama had like this is his moment, and I was like no, because I was like deathly afraid of being outed, and I felt like
Mm.
progressivism was like synonymous with me outing myself.
Yeah, so this was senior year of high school for you?
Of high school. Yeah.
Yeah, this was my freshman year of college.
Yeah.
So,
And so I didn't believe anything about conservatism
hmm
because I like knew my own truth and I knew what was wrong with all of those things, but because I wasn't willing to explore like a progressive identity, I really felt like I had no actual beliefs about a lot of things. Like I was just kind of in a neutral place because I was like spouting out like conservatism while
hmm
not believing it and like not willing to explore liberalism, which I felt like I probably more so identified with. So all of that is to say, when I went to college, I made a racist joke one night in like a group of new friends, like that I just like thought was funny because of my upbringing, or like not my upbringing, but like my like surrounding in
hmm
high school. And this queer person who was like in this room with us, just like this white queer person, was like, hey, like that is like pretty racist, and like you should like think about that because like that's not cool. And I was just like immediately very receptive to that because I feel like I had just never been in an environment where anyone had ever said like, hey, this is like how you should think about things if you care about like being good to the world.
hmm
And that is where I would say like I can identify the moment where I was like, okay, like it's time to explore some new ways of thinking that like I think I've always wanted to in the back of my mind but have never felt comfortable to do openly.
mm
Um so I think that like my an effort to understand race is also and class and gender and all of that is tied into like my own exploration of my own sexuality. So I think like all of those things had been at an upward momentum like from that moment.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is the thing you just said about because you were given the space to explore sexuality, you also were able to interrogate all these other things around race, gender, class, etc. And I think that's true of so many queer folks, is that, especially queer white folks, where, and this is something I noticed, especially even in queer Christian circles, is that many of us, especially those who are either white or white passing, figure out that like start figuring these things out as a result of interacting with QPOCs,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing how everything intersects. It was almost like if I didn't have my queerness to interrogate, I don't think I would have interrogated anything else. You know?
100%. And I think that is why, like, one of the first things I ever wrote for, like, this little, like, dark corner of the internet called Culture Stalked, was called Being Gay is My Favorite Thing About Myself. Because I feel like I really grew up in a space and an environment that was very privileged. And I don't know, because I have so many other examples of, like, white men who I was around who like never really had to explore a lot of other things, that they like still lack an understanding of struggles of other people. And I really feel like I could have very easily fallen prey to, like, if I never had to interrogate something about myself, I would have never explored some of those other pieces. And also, I owe, like, such a huge, huge amount of, like, everything that I am to, like, this weird, small circle of friends that, like, adopted me when I first went into college.
Mm-hmm.
That just, like, there was never a time where I was able to, like, start exploring my queerness without the understanding that, like, all of our oppression is, like, interconnected, and that, like, my queerness could in any way ever be removed from, like, a lens of intersectionality.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, those were just the people that I was around, and that was, like, completely on accident, but, like, it was so great for me, I think, just, like, as a person who, like, wants to exist in, like, the best, most effective way possible in the world. Like, it just was, like, racism is classism, is homophobia, is transphobia, is ableism, is all of these different pieces, and, like, I didn't do any of that initially. Like, there just, like, were people around me who were like, listen, this is what the fuck is up, and, like, here is where we're going with this. Like, get on board,
Mm-hmm.
please and thank you. And I was like, you're right, like, let's do it. Like, I'm ready. Like, I think for, like, the first time in my life, I just, like, shut up and listened to a lot of people and a lot of different queer folks and a lot of people who I would have never interacted with otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, I want this community, I want to be part of it, and I, like, want to understand.
Yeah. I think it also varies community by community, too, because I look at, like, Atlanta culture, for example. At least, I don't want to say by and large, but I'd say a good majority of the queer community in Atlanta is pretty intersectional, is, like, at work in activism. However, there's, like, a large contingency. Like, I think about going, like, Midtown, 10 Blakes, it's all white, traditionally attractive gay cis men.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like you walk into that space, and if you don't have a six-pack, you're, like, body shamed. Like, not even joking, like, I get, like, low-key anxiety walking in there because I can feel the eyes on me. I don't know if that's real or perceived, but it's just, like, I think maybe if you build a space out for a certain kind of person and it's only filled with a certain kind of person, you feel the otherness for whatever it is. But I think the other place I see a lot of this lack of critical lens is actually in, like, queer Christian circles, especially around, like, white queer Christians. And then even further down, white cis gay males, where it's like, they're cool, like, they get through, like, their theology and it's like, oh my gosh, Jesus loves me even though I'm gay. And that's where it stops. It's like, I can be gay now, this is cool. And then, like, racism isn't real. I didn't have slaves, so...
You know what I mean? So, like, everything is fine and, like, there are no problems.
Yeah, Martin Luther King, Anita Baker, Aretha Franklin.
They handled it, and, like, we're done now.
Yeah. Thanks, Rosa Parks.
Yeah, I think that is, like, such a large part. I mean, there have been... DC, which is where I currently live, is, like, one of the gayest cities in America. Like, just statistically, I think we're, like, usually top 3. Like, we battle it out with, like, New York and San Francisco on a pretty regular basis. Which is great. It's just, like, constant voguing competitions to see who comes out on top.
Yeah,
but
that's how it works. That's what determines it.
That's what we do. I'm really into voguing right now. But it also is, like, vastly white, vastly cisgender men. And I think there are, like, some really beautiful parts of our community here. And, like, there are people who are, like, down to, like, get weird and, like, are interested in, like, social justice and policy change and advocating for a lot of people. But then there are also, like, a lot of, like, gay men here who are just, like, we can be out and gay here for the most part, like, I would say on a regular, everyday basis because of, like, the neighborhood I live in and, like, the spaces that I go to. I see visibly, like, gay people every day. Mm-hmm. I see people, like, being affectionate in public. I see people holding hands. I see people like kissing on the sidewalk, you know what I mean? Like
Ew.
people with family, you know what I mean? Like I'm personally as a single person disgusted by it, but like a gay person very gratified by it. But like all of that being said, those people are largely like white, like are very traditionally attractive, you know what I mean? And then there have also been like instances where like there are still queer people who've like been harassed on the streets here. There was someone who was like the victim of a hate crime not too long ago, which like made like small circles of news. And then it's like, okay, great. Like it is safe for like this one group of people. And then it's not great for like the rest of the community, and like all kinds of queer people exist everywhere, obviously, but like are present in our community in DC. And so it just always makes me think like, we like love to think like we live in this great blue bubble. We've done everything that we need to do. Like we can be out here, we can be gay here, like we have pride, we can make out on the street, all of those things. But then when it gets watered down to it, it's like, but it's really only this one section of our community. We had something called Brunchgate not too long ago, which was like great. It like made like pseudo international, not news, but like there were people in other countries who were like, this is hysterical.
Brunchgate?
Where I forget what someone made, it was like during Pride or right before Pride. This group of friends took a picture at brunch. It was like 50 people. It was like a large group of people at a brunch. And they were all, like, and for the most part, 98%, like, white, very traditionally attractive gay men. And someone made a meme, and I forget the exact wording of the meme, but was basically, like, these are like the only kind of like gay people that exist in DC. And like it was like this huge deal because like we all knew people who were in this photo. You know what I mean? And like we were all like,
sorry, I know that I shouldn't laugh about that,
but it's like if you Google it, I like want to try and see if I can find it and then like figure out what the exact wording was. But it was like a huge deal because it like brought out this like very true like underbelly of like, yeah, it is like very possible if you wanted to exist only in white gayness and think like you've done something. Like we all donate $7 to the HRC once a year and like we go to Pride, and so like we're doing the duty of like supporting our community.
Yeah, we're doing the thing. We're doing the really hard work of just, you know, having fun and, you know, going to a party, specifically like an underwear party in public, right. Which also I'm just like, how do people get, and like maybe this is something I need to grow into. It's just my own confidence around my body and just go to that anyways, even with like the not, you know, I have a beach body. It's just like the beach just gets the body that I had at Christmas.
Right. That is, we are on the same page. You know what I mean? I like love all of it, but I wrote this thing called I guess like maybe a month ago, that was an open letter from a white gay TM for like this humor website called Points in Case that like kind of made fun of all of it, but it just was like, it is very easy to like get attention being like a traditionally attractive white gay person. And it's very easy once you have that attention to then think like, well, you're gay and people really support you. So like all gay people have got that.
Yeah. Just, yeah. Everyone, you know, we had Harvey Milk, so it's done. Stonewall, RuPaul.
We're done.
Yeah. That's real. And I think that's where I've talked about it with a few people, like whiteness and maleness can like still get you everywhere. And also whiteness, maleness, and especially if you have any form of affluence, it kind of shields you from having to deal with anything else. I think the most interesting person is like the white cis gay male Christian who is still a Republican somehow, or is like so moderate that they aren't really doing much of anything. Yeah. It's like, you know, I don't want to lose like this, you know, I have this community over here that loves me, but quote unquote disagrees with my lifestyle choices. But I don't want to lose that my connection to this tribe. Because I think it's also just like this connection to power in some ways. That
Hmm.
like if you can still be a part of this specific club, you know, you can people always say like, I'd like the phrase I've heard from somebody that really pissed me off was I'm too liberal for conservatives and I'm too conservative for liberals. I said that means you're lukewarm and Jesus is going to spit you out of his mouth.
Like, that is not how this works.
No. Like it's like that's like the thing that bothers me and why people just like won't interrogate it. Like even at like QCF or Q Christian Fellowship this past year, in the past few years, as like QCF has become more intersectional and more vocally intersectional. I remember one person I was reading through some surveys, and they said, "I liked everything, but they talked so much about trans issues and race issues. Can't we just talk about like God loving the gay people?"
No, we can't. We've done that. I'm like, the Pope is on board, right? Isn't that what happened yesterday?
Or something. That I think this is going to be Popegate, maybe.
I wish anyone still listened to the Pope. I like don't know how to like, as like a Catholic TM.
Catholic? I didn't know that you were Catholic. I actually thought.
I mean, I'm not. I was raised Catholic. I just like say that because like
Well, you
most
were
of my family
confirmed,
is still
right?
Catholic. Yeah, I was confirmed.
Therefore, you've got that blessing. You're part of the
I've
fam.
got it. I'm Garrett Paul Thomas Schlichte. Thomas is my confirmation name because my dad is a lawyer and St. Thomas was the patron saint of lawyers, so I picked that. That made sense to me because they make you do it in 8th grade. And I'm like, I wanted to be St. Hermione and I couldn't, so I was St. Thomas.
I would have been Saint Hildegard because she was a mystic. Also, like think about Kevin Hildegard, Miguel Garcia.
Just all the way through.
Yeah, or the Virgin of Guadalupe. Can I pick her as a patron saint? Is that a thing?
Sure, why not?
I don't know I don't know much about Catholicism. My friends are
I
trying to
don't
make me.
either.
My friend. My friends are trying to make me become a Lutheran.
I won the religion award in 8th grade.
Did you really? What's a
Yeah,
religion award? You're the best Catholic?
I'm basically the best Catholic. At the end of like the school year, there's like an English award, a math award, and like religion was a subject we had to take in school. And so I got the religion award for like being the most prestigious religion student we had at Nativity Catholic School.
Incroyable.
And I was pissed about it because I wanted the English award. I was so mad.
Oh. When I was in the 6th grade, I won. So we were like divided up into teams in middle school. Did y'all have that?
No.
Oh.
We were divided into houses in high school, like Hogwarts.
Oh. Probably like same ish. But they were all horse themed. So we were the Clydesdale, and I won Clydesdale of the Year for having apparently the highest GPA out of anyone in 6th grade.
Oh
But
my God.
you know how long that lasted? A
The
minute.
6th grade.
Yeah.
Just the 6th grade.
Yeah, because after that, like, it was all downhill. Even in college, it was just like, I need to take less courses because I can't handle having music courses and regular courses at the same time.
Oh, I didn't want to do anything. After I got involved in college, I was like, I'm done academically, thank you.
Oh, same. Like, because, like, you were super duper involved and did all the things, correct?
I was an orientation leader. I was an RA. I was in student government. I was part of Pride Student Union. Whole shebang.
I wanted to be part of, like, our pride group on campus, but I was still semi-closeted. It was a very interesting thing where it's just like, I'm going to, like, sort of flirt with boys, but I'm not going to talk about it so much. But I'm also not going to come to the GSA, like, council meeting.
Oh, I was like, again, because of like the group of people who I'd become friends with, which were like a lot of like really like rad, queer, like feminists, and like people who like in college identified as like queer and gender queer, which was like all just like so mind blowing to me because I was just getting comfortable with calling myself gay. Had like such large issues with our Pride Student Union because Pride Student Union was like mainly run by white gay men and like served like white gay men. So they were like, we are going to infiltrate and we're going to take it over. And then they did. It was great.
That sounds thrilling. I've never had like a coup happen on campus. We tried to do that in my fraternity one year where we wanted to call a special election in the middle of it. But
I'm all for a college campus coup. I'm like ready.
I mean, it happened like at one point, like there was something like the for the council, like the IFC, like violated its own constitution, and so the vote was to dissolve the IFC and completely restructure it. It was like madness for a few weeks.
Where did you go to college again?
Christopher Newport University, go
Oh, that's right.
Captains!
CNU.
Yeah,
Love CNU.
fight for seeing you. And the thing is, like, when you go to a school of 5,000 people and you just have a strong personality, you can run everything.
Yeah.
Um,
It was like slightly more difficult with 40,000, but like I did my best.
Listen, you were Caddy Heron
I was Caddy
the spring
Heron.
fling, and you broke that crown off and said, "A piece for Gretchen Wieners."
Everybody.
Yeah, I so like, let me. I have two other pivots I want to do, but it's something that you mentioned around like you fell into this group of really fantastic radical queers. And the same thing happened for me when I came out and moved to Atlanta. I fell into this group of like radical intersectional queer folks who were doing the work, you know, being involved with teaching people how to be their own advocates and people who thought and taught about intersectionality. And it's because of this group that like I went from just thinking about like gay liberation in the church to being like, oh shit, this is so much bigger than me having the right to marry somebody.
Yeah.
Which is like the thing that I was like, oh, we got marriage equality, we're done. Nah, bruh.
We're fine. We're fine.
Yeah, so now the state has a way to track our bodies again. Thanks a lot.
All great.
Sorry, I need to crack my back real quick.
Mm.
That felt amazing. But for folks in places where they may not have that sort of posse crew, what Nancy's calling it is like their gaggle thing, which also I might be on.
Oh my god.
Me and Amelia did an interview for Nancy, and I don't know if they're actually going to use it, but I have hope because it was a beautiful story about being queer and Christian and like finding that, holding two identities in one.
Yeah, I love that.
But like what are your suggestions to people who are like looking to diversify their group, to find their own gaggle, to find the people who are going to like start building them up, especially if they don't live in like queer metropolises like Atlanta, DC, New York, San Fran, LA?
I think like something that is really incredible is the amount of like queer like content that is available online and the way that like people are starting to engage with that. There are some great publications and like brands that have come about recently that are like I think doing an incredible job of highlighting so many different queer narratives across the board and like are working in community building spaces in that way. And I think like you can now. I never understood how to build like a queer community online. Like that was just like never something that I really had. I like kind of knew that it existed, but I think like so many things with that are possible. And I would like them.
And them is the publication.
Them is the publication, THEM period, out of Condé Nast, is like doing some incredible, incredible work. I think like Into, which is Grindr's digital magazine, which like also, shout out to that.
Yeah, and also shout out to them. Like, I didn't know that like this was like going to turn into like a whole like outlet that's like because like Grindr in itself, like it is what you make of it, but by and large, the people who use Grindr can be some kind of way, depending on where you are and the kind of person who you're engaging with. But I love how like there's been such like a pivot, not even a pivot, or maybe just a natural evolution of their work of saying like, hey, we want to represent more than just, you know, the cis gay male.
Right. And I'm like, walk the children in nature into like, take them out. Like, it's great. I'm like, you get like push notifications in Grindr where it's like it looks like you've gotten a message, but you've actually gotten like this really insightful article sent to you in like through the Grindr application where I'm like, all right, like go ahead with that. Like they are doing some great things. And I think, I mean, those are great places to start if you don't have community directly in front of you and present. There is so much online that can help you to feel like part of this larger movement. And not just feel a part of it, but like I think there is real agency in like reading and engaging with this content. And I think like in the like few moments that I've spent like in the comments section on a lot of these things, like a lot of it is like positive, and it is community building, and it is wanting to see that, you know what I mean? And I think like there are arguments to be made for and against social media in a lot of ways, but like so many of these places, like they've done lists about like queer artists to follow on social media, and like it is so many different kinds of artists creating so much different kind of art. And like, yes, absolutely still find ways to engage in like a physical world, but like flood your social media with like great queer representation that like tells a ton of different kind of stories, because like it really helps you get connected to so many of these things, you know. And I think they're like, I'm not a sociologist, so I like will not give actual advice here, you know what I mean? I think they're like,
you're not? This is very confusing. I thought that was like part of your...
I am just like a straight sociologist. Like that is my
studying
goal. Like,
the environment of queerness as a project.
But I'm just like, if you like, obviously it's important to engage in like the physical world. Like don't get lost in a phone, because like I just can't imagine that is like the most healthy. But also, if that's what you got to like feel connected to this community, like that is like a wonderful, incredible place to start. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do. And that's where it started for me. And that's also like following queer Christians on Twitter was like the first step. And like kind of like dipping my toe in the water. And it was like before I even like came out of the closet. Also, Twitter knew that I was gay before I came out, and I was mortified.
I mean, it knows all of our secrets.
It really does. Like, Facebook told somebody who told somebody who told Instagram that they, like, should start showing me, like engagement rings for men. And I'm like, first of all, triggered. Second of all...
Triggered.
Listen, I don't... Some days I want to get married. Other days I'm just like,
That's exactly it.
Who can say? I'm here for people taking me on dates, buying me tacos.
And that's all I need right now.
That is serious. That's all I want. The other night I went. This is a funny story. I went on a date the other night, and really good time with this guy. You know, we shared a lot of good laughs. He had a very brilliant mustache, which I'm not normally into mustaches, but he pulled it off.
There you go.
And I said, you know what? I'm gonna flex a little bit. I'm gonna pay for dinner. And so I hand my card off to the waitress, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, thanks so much." Blah blah blah. We're chitty chatting. 20 minutes goes by, and she comes back. And she's like looking on the ground with like the light from her phone. And I'm like, did someone like drop an earring? And she comes back to the table and says, I lost your card and I'm looking for it, but I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm like, all right. And so like, she looked everywhere for it. We sat there for like another 10 minutes. And I'm like, hey, like you can just take this other card and pay for it. I'll just cancel. No, she's like, no, we're going to comp your food tonight and your drinks. Which I was thrilled, because that was 4 cocktails, 9 tacos, and like 8 little different like shared appetizers.
Yeah, and that's how you know that you serve a living God. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, small.
Like, my God is alive and real. He wants me to flirt with cute boys, to have delicious beverages, and then he's gonna say, you know what? I've got it.
Yeah. What the devil has meant for a curse, I'm going to turn into a blessing. That curse of losing my card turned into a blessing of abundance.
That is what I'm saying. The devil is working hard, but our Lord and Savior is working harder, you guys.
Yeah. The gates of hell shall not overcome the work of the Lord.
No weapon formed against me shall prosper, is like what I know.
Now, funny enough, this is like the perfect pivot to like talking about dating as queer and Christian. Because Jesus fucking wept. It's hard.
Yeah.
For like multiple reasons. I want to give me some of your reasons, and then we can just hash it out.
I mean, I think it's because there are an infinite number of kinds of people in the world, but I have typically run into like a few of the same kinds of people
within dating, like queer Christian circles.
Just like within dating in queer circles in general, and then encountering like Christian moments.
Encountering Christian moments.
I would say, like, on one hand, there are people who like don't feel strongly convicted about it either way. They're like, you are, you aren't. It doesn't like really affect my life. I like grew up going to church, but I'm like not super into my faith. So like, whatever, here we go. And then there are people who like can't separate like the institution of religion from like a faith or spirituality, who are like, I have no idea how you could do this. And I'm like, well, it's really hard. Like, and
it took
that is
years
how
of
I
processing.
you know what I mean? And like, I'm still working through it because like institutionally, like religion can be like really damaging and harmful to like a lot of communities, not just queer folks. But I like have this greater sense of something. And so I try really hard on a regular basis to figure out how I can align two of those things. And then there are people who are like, you're a lunatic for believing in like this like fictitious like being somewhere up in the sky or otherwise. And I've got to go.
Yeah, they just don't want to hear it. They don't want to talk about it. Like, it's almost like you go on a date, it's just like, so, like, you know, what are you doing on Sunday? And I'm like, going to church.
Going to church.
I've encountered that too. There's everyone from someone who's kind of ambivalent about it to really, really wonderful people who have, like, you know, really fantastic aspirations, and like you line up with a lot of things that they line up with and you have chemistry, but then the moment they hear that you are a spiritual or religious individual, it's like you get almost like you get painted with a broad brush that gets painted on religion, or especially Christians, and like, you know, like understandably so, like good reason, like sometimes with good reason, but it's almost like I don't want to apologize for my faith or that I possess it. I do, but it is that distinction between like the institution of the church and religion and the institution, or just like, and then a deeply held spiritual practice that helps improve my life and hopefully by proxy the lives of others. Please do not choke, dog.
I'm like, you seem like you're having a moment.
I'm okay.
Over there.
Yeah, Butters is fine now. She's been a little sick recently.
Oh, Butters.
Do you want to see her? She's like kind of weird looking, and I love her. Butters, do you say hi? Butters. Look at that.
Oh, she is adorable. She's weird looking, but she's adorable.
I know. I love it. Sorry to interrupt.
No, dog content is important content.
Well, we were talking about dating while queer and Christian. Yeah, it's something. There's something like recently I've been thinking about, just like a lot of people is, and then, you know, because like my audience is mostly queer Christians and like people who work in this kind of circle. And I recently was talking with someone and they asked me, like, would you ever be open to dating a non-Christian? And I'd be like, yeah, probably. I think there is this also like this idea around the need to be married in general that is so heteronormative that kind of like has like, I've just been questioning a lot of it recently, because like what is like, if I am with a partner and we are you know, building a life together, doing well, I don't know, it's like I'm trying to figure out how to say this. It's almost just like, even like there's this obsession with like finding a human, finding somebody to be with, finding someone to complete you, finding someone to build your life with immediately, rather than working on yourself, finding what you want to do, finding how you can give back to the world. And then just like, if you happen to find somebody that happens to be in the same path as you, and it becomes a partnership. And I feel like there's like such like this heteronormative script that like you're not worth anything until you're married and you have a kid, and then you're like a part of your local congregation. That I think that a lot of like, especially queer Christians fall into, where they're just like, now they're okay with being gay, like they are obsessed with finding a partner, when in reality, like there's probably a couple things you should work on yourself first. Does that make sense at all?
No, that makes perfect sense. I think like what I have like recently been coming not to terms with, but I think like more so understanding, is that like, and I think this is true for every generation of people, but whatever we are all doing, this is the first time what we are doing has been possible ever. In the sense that, like, the way that I freelance and the things that I write, like, a lot of times my parents don't understand that because, like, those kind of opportunities and these kind of publications and these audiences didn't exist when they were doing it. So, like, my parent, like, I had a great conversation with this editor at the Post. He was probably like 20 years older when I was, like, first starting freelancing. And I was like, what advice do you have? How can you help me, like, kind of navigate this? And he was like, honestly, I have no idea because this is the first time anything like this has existed. So, like, people who are doing this work are, like, paving the path for that. And that is also how I feel about life in general. I think, like, in this moment, in the sense that, like, the way that our parents live their lives, like, the way that my parents live their life makes no sense to their parents because the way that my parents lived their life was not accessible before because a lot of those things didn't exist. So, like, the way that I live my life, like, my parents look at me and think, like, what are you doing? This doesn't make sense to us because the opportunities that are available to me, the things that have been created, like, they just didn't exist for them. Like, there weren't those opportunities before. There's, like, such a broad understanding of identity and relationship and, like, what it means to, like, just exist as a person now that didn't exist before. So I have, not in an effort to, like, escape coping with reality because, like, there are still things that are incredibly important to be figured out, but I've become very comfortable with the idea that I'm, like, probably the reason why I don't know whether I want to get married or how I want to get married or what I want my life to look like, or, like, do I want to, like, co-parent with, like, my best friend and, like, raise an awesome kid, like, in that way because, like, that's lovely and accessible to us now. It's never been possible before. And so, like, yes, we have no idea because, like, that universe of things hasn't existed like, for previous generations to, like, explore. So, like, I have become more comfortable with figuring it out as I go because I feel like I have recently come to the realization that, like, everyone for the majority of the history of time has just been figuring it out as they have gone along. And so, like, I still want to be forward thinking. I, like, still want to plan for that. But when I'm like, yeah, maybe I, like, won't get married until I'm 50. And, like, I feel like anytime people say that, like, it's automatically projected on them. It's like, like, I'm really okay with being single, you guys. Like, I'm trying to convince myself by, like, telling you all this. And I'm like, no, I just think the reality is, like, there's a lot that I want to do with my life, and there are, like, places that I want to live, and there are jobs that I want to have, and there are careers that I want to explore. And people can do that with a partner. Do you know, like, that is 100% possible for people. I know people who are doing it. I'm, like, so excited for them to be doing it. It just, like, isn't what I'm doing. And, like, that's cool. You know? Like, I think that is just
it is what it is. That's was it Drake or Kendrick who said that? It is what it is. I think it was Drake.
I don't know. I'm going to pass on that question.
You mean you don't have a working history of, like, modern hip hop? How dare you?
No.
You call yourself an intersectional person? Like, you don't know.
I know. I'm, like, traditionally only female MCs.
I was actually talking with
boys.
Yeah, same. Me neither. Don't like boys. Only girls. I'm looking for the Ruth to my mighty Boaz. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to fill that role of provider, protector, and priest of my family.
There you go.
Same. Like, I think I want to get married, but I don't. But it's for the same reasons that, like, that you said. But I think more along the lines of just, like, parenting. I feel there's, like, a lot of people who, like, they just kind of want to settle into, like, the heteronormative dream of, like, partnered, married, kids, house, and just do that. And, like, more power to those humans. I think that's great. I think about, like, kind of what you said, just like, what if I just co-parented a child with one of my friends who's, like, really, really good, and, like, we were, like, know that we're going to be good parents. like I'm thinking like one of my girlfriends out here, like who's just like
Yeah.
really wonderful, forward thinking, and just like that would sound
Also,
that
like, what if we don't have kids? You know what I mean? Like, I
period.
just think like so my friend Zach, who I live with, recently graduated from divinity school.
Congratulations.
Shout out to Wesley Theological Seminary here in the District of Columbia.
A Tiny Revolution does not endorse this. Just kidding. I don't care.
No, but we had a really interesting conversation recently because like he's in like a long-term relationship. He is also a homosexual. And like is like living, laughing, loving his like truest coupled life. But is also like, it is a scary thing because the more he's like obviously been like confronted with a lot of like really deep questions and like big moments in divinity school and the way they talk about a lot of things and the way they talk about like relationship and marriage and like a ton of really interesting stuff. But he was talking about like some study that was done that was basically like people change who they are in like major ways pretty much like every 10 years. And when you're doing that with another person, like you will likely, if you get married and your marriage lasts for your entire life, the person who you end up with will not be the person you started with. But like a lot of what we have expected of other people is like this comfort and like this stasis, like the person you are is the person that you're going to be. And so like doing that with another person can be really difficult. And I think like not being open to that, the idea that like someone could be vastly different is what gets people into a lot of trouble in relationships. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because like I think about who I was like just 2.5 years ago, vastly different right now, or even like 6 months ago for that matter.
Yeah.
Because life comes at you fast. And I think maybe even like as we're in the middle of like our Trump presidency, like so much I have become, if I thought I was radicalized before, like I have the Molotov cocktail in my hand now. Like I'm really ready to go burn this shit down. And you know, my asks of people are much heavier because I think that we live in times that are more consequential. But all to say, it's that exact fear is what like kind of like keeps marriage at arm's length, like the idea of marriage at arm's length for me, because like I wonder, I'm like what if I'm different? What if they're different? And what if like those differences can't coalesce? What if those differences lead us down different paths? And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just something to be honest about.
Yeah, I think that like that is like, it's such a huge thing to like grapple with and to understand. And I also like don't know if I have the emotional maturity to like be in a long-term relationship right now either. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be someone finding me. It has to be being like, am I ready to do this? Or am I also like fine with just like kissing cute boys and like hanging out and going on fun dates and like seeing what happens for a little bit and then like we'll get there, you know?
Yeah. Because like I do think eventually I'd like to be married. I have dreamed about that since I was a little girl.
Same. You know what I mean? Like I've already picked out the dress.
Yeah, I already have 4 Pinterest boards for the different seasons.
You know, I'm like, I have like the engagement party, I have the bachelorette party, I have the reception, I have like the bridal shower. Like I've got it all. I've got my bridesmaids. Like I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Where is my mighty Boaz? And,
you know,
and at the same time, like I'm trying. I want to try not to rush it. I'm trying to eat, pray, love my life right now.
Yeah, we're all Julia Roberts.
We're all Elizabeth Gilbert. Man,
Julia Roberts.
Wow, you're really pushing that. I see. Like I've actually never seen Eat, Pray, Love. I've read Eat, Pray, Love. So
okay, well you have to do both because I loved the book obviously, and then I loved the movie obviously.
Do you have any other favorite movies?
Every Julia Roberts movie ever made. My Best Friend's Wedding is my favorite movie. Erin Brockovich, like, speaks to my soul. Obviously, Pretty Woman, Mystic Pizza, because I visited it when I lived in Connecticut.
Amazing.
I am Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell in Hook, which is, like, an incredible movie, and, like, made even more so incredible by the fact that you don't even realize it's Steven Spielberg, because, like, what a ridiculous movie for Steven Spielberg to make. But yeah, all Julia Roberts characters in all movies.
Wow. A blessed time.
Even the bad ones.
I've really enjoyed our time, our conversation, I like hanging out with you. We should let's try and plan more FaceTimes in the future. I'm actually trying to make it out to DC sometime in the next 6 months, so I will let you know.
Oh my God, please let me know.
That was my conversation with my buddy, friend, Garrett Schlichte. You can connect with Garrett all across social media at Schlichte, which is spelled G, and then last name, SCH, I have to look closer, SCHLICHTE, Garrett Schlichte. I follow him on my Twitter, so you can go find him there. I'll be tagging him all day. And then also connect with him on his website, GarrettSchlichte.com. I'm not going to spell it out again. You can listen back or just go to his Twitter and link through that. Okay, Garrett, thank you for being on the show, BB. It was so much fun. You had me in stitches. Okay, that's all for that. Wrapping things up, credits as per usual. This podcast is supported by so many amazing, wonderful people. 102 people, exactly. Then that's the number of supporters I have on Patreon. And what Patreon is, if you live under a stupid rock, not that you're stupid, but the rock you live under is stupid. Patreon is a great way for people like you to support the creatives in your life who are creating things that matter. Something you should know if you didn't already know, I'm an independent creative, which means while I may have support from certain sponsors from time to time, I mainly am able to do what I do because I have supporters like you, my friends. So if you want to go over to patreon.com/thekevingarcia and learn more about what being a sustaining partner looks like, as well as the awesome perks associated with being a partner, you can, become a part of the revolution. And that's what we're all here to do, right? And not to mention, it's Pride Month, so if you want to get away from the commodification of Pride, the capitalism that is taking over all of our Pride festivals, why not subvert that by donating a little bit to creatives or LGBTQ nonprofits that you enjoy or support? So if you go over to patreon.com/thekevingarcia, you can make that pledge today. It can be as simple as $1 or $2 a month. You know you want to, you've been meaning to, and I promise you're going to feel better for it. So I'm done talking about that. Go to patreon.com/thekevingarcia, sign up today, blah, blah, blah. That's dope. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Be on the lookout for my new ebook, which is going to come out sometime this month. Yes, it's late because I'm late with everything. So, it'll be right in line with my brand of being completely not on time. On top of that, you can also subscribe to me on the blog, which is thekevingarcia.com. Subscribe to this episode thingy called a podcast. I called it an episode thingy. That's cool. Drink some water. Call your therapist. Call your squad. Go out tonight. Get feeling all right. You let it just all hang out. Let's go, girls. I feel like a woman. All right, take a nap, do some yoga, and I'll talk to you next week, honey. This has been another episode of A Tiny Revolution. I'm Kevin Garcia. You are so beautiful. Let's talk soon, okay? Bye.